let's continue with part 2 of our Sowden clock. You'll need to work in the template that's on Compass. Download that. When you open it up, you'll notice there are 3 layers, and we are going to draw the clock face, the clock front view in the clock layer. So make sure you don't do it anywhere else. It's the very, very bottom. So before I go any further, I need to make some corrections on some poor design on my part. I'd like to make this a bit more flared. So I'm going to go out on both sides. Now I've made it bigger than 100 wide, so I need just to select the whole thing and make sure that I've got the link on, so I can change the widths and heights proportionally. Then I'm going to come down to 100, and that's better. If I was to drag this over one of my patterns, actually they're not my patterns, they're Fu Yen's patterns. Yeah, looks pretty good to me. So thank you, Fu Yen, for doing the work for me, or that you let me use your work. So let's continue. So what we want to do is, I want to show you just firstly the extrusion effect, and I'll do that by creating firstly a new artboard. Artboards are on the right here, and you can just click at the bottom, new artboard, and if I zoom out, you can see just what this means. So I've got now a new artboard, and I want to use this new artboard specifically for the purposes of the extrusion. So I'm going to copy my original drawing, click on the new artboard, then V, okay, Command Z that, go Command 0, which centers into the selected artboard, then Command V. The Command V, as opposed to Command F, Command V pastes to the middle of your format if your format is already centered to the screen, whereas Command F pastes exactly where you copied from. Okay, so here's our clock. I'd like just to give it a couple of neutral colors. I'll leave the white for the fill. However, for the stroke, I will create a grey tone. Okay, that didn't quite work for some reason. That's better. Right, I've got a grey tone. Select, I'll do one at a time, or I can do both, I suppose. I'll do both. Later on, when we apply the patterns to the surfaces, we'll be selecting one of these shapes at a time. So I go to Effect. You can't quite see it because I'm not capturing the top palette. Oh well, I'll have to just continue and finish this video. Next time I'll correct it. So it's basically the fourth window from the right. I go to Effect, 3D Extrude and Bevel, and I click on Preview, and that gives me an initial impression of what I will be drawing. Obviously it's not quite deep enough, so I might just go 250, see what that's like. Click off, click back on again on Preview. That feels a little better in terms of its dimensions. Maybe it's a little deep, but how will I tell if it is or not? Well, let's see. Oh, mama. Front. So that looks, and top. There you go. What I want to do is just reduce this and see how that maybe affects. So all I want is some square. The top one to be a square. All right. What the view I really want though is the isometric right. Voila. And that looks far more proportionally correct. And notice the extrusion depth is 204. I think that's what you should be using as well. Given the 100 millimeter width of this clock, 204 point in depth should be sufficient for you. So then we choose the isometric right view right here. Okay, so that's it. It's as simple as that. We can now make the correction. It looks pretty kind of bleh at the moment, true. But once we apply our patterns to it, it will look a lot more interesting. Okay. Now, I'm presuming you've already watched videos 1 and 2 of the introduction to Illustrator, where you're introduced to the pen tool and shapes and the Pathfinder tool, where you can combine or delete aspects of a shape. So please, if you haven't done that, do that first. Okay, so if you have done that, we can continue. So we've organized all our work into these 3 layers on the right hand side. Your surface graphics is in the surface graphics layer, your clock in the clock layer, and you've got these thing squares. If I just get rid of everything else, you'll see those 4 squares is what you start with. Now that's basically the parameters of the shapes. They're 100 by 100, which is the maximum width of the clock. What you want to do though is, if you have lines exceeding the parameters of the 100 by 100 box, you need to clip out or crop into that box. I'm selecting this square as well as the design in the layer beneath it. This is important. This tool I'll show you now is called a clipping mask, and what you are clipping to has to be above the thing that you are clipping. Please don't forget that. The thing that is being clipped is below the parameters you're clipping to. So it's right click and make clipping mask, and that makes it beautifully nice and neat. So everything that exceeded that box now is gone. Okay, let's do the same to this one. You can also do it through object, clipping mask, make. And now we have 2 of these which are ready to go into another step. These 2 don't have shapes that exceed the bounds of that box, nor does this one. So these 2 do not require a clipping mask. Alrighty, so I think we're ready to go for our next step. I select and I drag. Give it a name, stripy. How about we change from a movie clip to graphic? And what kind of symbol is this? It's a static symbol. And okay, so this here is now linked to that thumbnail in there. And let's do the next one. Okay, we are now going to place a bunch of these onto the surfaces of this clock. So to do this, we don't go back to the effect palette, we go to the appearance palette. The appearance palette, if it's not already up, go to window and scroll down till you get to appearance. There we are, right there. So I've got it here. I'll select it from the right hand side. Now, okay, first let's select the top box, and you'll notice it has 3D extrude and bevel. That's what we want. And before we go any further, click preview. That's it. And now we can go into map. There you go. Map art. Okay, so what this does now is you have to select a face. So the first face has been chosen. It's been highlighted by this red now, and that corresponds to this window here. And this no symbol has been chosen. But let's see if, there we go. So face 1 of the 16 faces, you kind of think, how can there be 16 faces? Well, basically you have the outside of the front, you have the inside of the front. The outside of the tops of the top and the inside of the top. So everything is just double. You have to be very patient until you get the right surface. And we can then just work through. That's the back. That's the side. That's the bottom. There's the side. So let's see if this one will work. No. So that side surface 5 is no good for us. So we've got to be patient and work through this. And that's that. Okay and okay. Well, why don't we now just do the bottom part. Notice that both of these aren't fitting nicely. So you can actually move this around. And there is a cheat. Opa. Oh, I can scroll down through the... I didn't know you could do that. I don't want to do that. What I do want to do is actually just make that a little bigger, because for some reason that's not 100 by 100. Well, of course it's not. It's 110 in height, isn't it? Silly Sakaris. Okay. Right. So at least you know now what happens when you don't have the right dimensions. If you knew that ahead of time, how tall or how wide your design is, then you can make it appropriate to fit. Okay, I'm just going to leave that for now. And we have there's a little seam coming through. We can go back there and fix that up. But that looks all right. See how it's actually now just picked up. In fact, I think it's suitable if we just put the same on top rather than this zigzaggy thing. Nonetheless, you've got a 3D form with graphics applied to the surfaces in isometric. So that in itself is a great thing to be able to do.